like I have to go in there for landlady things. I had to add batteries to your smoke detector, and I thought I smelled gas, and I wanted to go through your underwear drawer and see if you had any Polaroids of ex-lovers that maybe I could compare myself to. Like, no, but just normal landlady things. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or to it if this is the first time you are seeing my face. If it is, I should let you know that I am normally a blonde, but I am going through a quarter-life crisis, and I dyed my hair a little too dark. I don't want to talk about it right now, because today we are doing some secondhand storytime snippets. A little bit of everything. It's kind of just like mini story times that aren't necessarily my own, but that I wanted to share with you guys. And today's story time snippets are going to be about some batshit crazy landlords. Maybe not like that crazy. My story times are more tame and mundane and a little bit more relatable to the everyday man. But you guys let me know some of your crazy landlord stories, because I have a fantastic landlord. I don't know how I hit the landlord jackpot, but I'm going to die in this apartment. I love it so much. I have such a great landlord. But in my travels this summer, I have talked to some people and got some of these secondhand story times, and a couple I also saw on the internet, so I'll tell you a little bit more about them. But if you like videos like this or just hanging out with me, make sure to like this video. It really helps me out. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed, so you can join us for future story times, rants, chit chats, and snippets. But with that being said, let's hop into some of these little story times about some crazy landlords. So this first storytime snippet is going to be from my friend who we will call Victor. Now, Victor moved to Los Angeles when he was 18 years old, many a moons ago. He was from the Midwest, but he wanted to move to the West Coast on a dream of breaking into the entertainment or music industry and following his heart and doing what everybody else in Los Angeles is doing, and that's struggling to get by while pursuing your ambitions. It's me. But as a young 18-year-old kid with no real work experience, hardly any savings, he was kind of strapped for cash in the rent department. And so he scoured Craigslist in order to find a cheap room. And after kind of doing a little bit of hunting and researching, he ended up finding the perfect room in Los Angeles. And by perfect, I mean it had everything that he needed. It had air conditioning, which is a huge plus in Los Angeles. It had a dishwasher. It had a yard. It may have been in a little bit more of a rundown area of Los Angeles, but based on the listing price, it was only going to be $400 a month, which was perfectly in his price range, something he could swing, and he wanted to look further into it. So he contacted the landlady, who we will call Margaret. Margaret was a little bit older of a woman, and she said that that room just kind of goes empty anyway, so she might as well make some money out of it. Now, Margaret had a kind heart. She understood that this man was traveling from the Midwest to follow a dream, and she told him, hey, listen, like, I'm not like other landladies. I'm a cool landlady. And with that, I won't even charge you a deposit or a first month's rent. I won't even really make you sign a traditional lease, because I get that a lot of people are transient and they come and go. So why don't we just do a month-to-month kind of thing? You pay the $400 and I'll let you know what the utilities are every month and you can pitch in for those. So here's Victor moving to seemingly the hills of Hollywood to become a big movie star. And he just scored this sweet deal on a rent where he doesn't even have to pay a deposit, first month's rent, there's no lease, super chill landlady. So he agreed with unbridled enthusiasm and moved in shortly thereafter. And the first few weeks went swimmingly. He paid his $400 rent a month, and Margaret would kind of just let him know, like, hey, it's gonna be $50 here and there for, utilities, whether it's internet, power, electricity, those sort of things. So it varied, but he was happy to pitch in for those costs. And he really liked Margaret. She was like an older lady. And when I say older lady, that is so subjective. I had somebody recently call me older. I was like, bitch, I just turned 30. What is older to you, you child? I guess older to me is like she was in her 50s or 60s, older than an 18-year-old kid. And so as a woman in her 60s, kind of living alone with this tenant, she got a little lonely, and she would consider her tenant more so for company as well. It was one of the perks of offering such cheap rent, in her opinion. And with that, she would often cook very delicious meals and would have nice sit-down dinners with Victor, and he had a great relationship with her because it was almost kind of like a surrogate mother in this new town that he was living in. And so one month during the summer, the air conditioning actually went out and needed to be fixed, and Margaret told him, hey, hey, I need you to pitch in for the air conditioning. It's gonna be a couple extra $100 to fix, like you pay half of it. And he kind of thought this was weird because he was like, I don't know, aren't you the landlady? Aren't you supposed to fix that? But he knew because they had this untraditional agreement that, yeah, he was using the air conditioning and maybe he was the root cause of why it broke down. Sure, I'll be happy to pitch in. And then one day the dishwasher broke, and that was also something that he used. And so she asked him to contribute some money towards that. And again, because he was kind of getting this sweet deal, he's like, yeah, it's the least I can do. But in this time, he was still struggling with money. He was getting some gigs here and there, but as oftentimes when he moved to Los Angeles, the opportunities aren't as ludicrous, meant to say lucrative, aren't as lucrative as one might think. So he was a little strapped for cash and he said, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pitch in for this dishwasher. And she said, no worries. How about you just contribute more around the house and kind of pitch in with manual labor as your payment? And he kind of thought, okay, I guess this is fine. Now, side note, this is all not illegal, but I mean, it is illegal. If something breaks in your unit, it is the land person's, it's the owner of the building's responsibility to get those fixed on the tenant's behalf. So he should not have been paying for this. But this is also just an 18-year-old kid. He doesn't know his tenant rights. He doesn't know the laws of the land when it comes to renting a room without an official agreement. So he was kind of going along with this. So he was helping out around the apartment a little bit more, spending a little bit more time. Margaret was cooking for him more and almost like expecting him to hang out and be in her presence a little bit more. And he kind of started to get a little weirded out by it because he's like, I don't want my job to be helping out around the house, you know, picking up the cat litter, cooking dinners, vacuuming, and spending time with this older lady that's just my landlady. Like, I'm not really comfortable with that. So Victor would often retreat to his room after he was done with his chores because he's like, I don't need a new friend to be the person that I lived with. No, thank you. But Margaret would notice that like, hey, like you don't want to come out and watch this new movie with me or the new season of Survivor just dropped. You want to binge it with me? And he'd be like, no, that's okay. As if he's realizing that he was almost expected to hang out with her as part of his rent payment. And he said one day he was in his own bedroom, kind of just chilling out. He had headphones in and he thought he maybe have heard like a knock on the door, but he wasn't really sure, didn't really think much of it. But he was also kind of avoiding Margaret at this point. Then, I guess their apartment was on the ground floor of this apartment building. He keeps hearing knocking and knocking, and he's looking around. He looks over to his window, and there's Margaret knocking on his bedroom window. And he's concerned because he's like, oh my God, Margaret, are you okay? Why are you outside knocking on my bedroom window like some little cat burglar? What's going on? Shimmies up the windows like, Margaret, are you okay? She goes, yeah, I was knocking on your door. You didn't answer. Like, I have dinner ready. Do you want to come eat? And he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but no, thank you. I'm full, I don't really want to hang out with you, that sort of thing. So just like weird little things started happening in that sense. So soon enough, Victor did end up getting a part-time job, so he was out of the apartment a lot more frequently. And this was a relief to him because Margaret had just been giving him the heebie-jeebies at this point. But every time he came home, and she would try to, you know, open a conversation or try to convince him to have dinner with her, that she started dropping these little nuggets of information that he would go, I don't think I remember telling you that. Here's an example. She had brought up that Disney Plus was going to be launching their next Star Wars franchise show. There's like a gajillion of them, so you decide what that's gonna be in your own head. And she kind of brought up like, hey, you love Star Wars, we should watch this show together since you like it so much. And he thought like, how do you know I like Star Wars? Like, I don't wear memorabilia about it. And she was just kind of like, oh, like, you know, I saw some of the figurines in your room. And he kind of thought like, oh, you've been in my room? Like, yeah, I guess you're my landlady. You probably have to go into my room for some things, but the figurines that she's talking about aren't visible unless you're kind of going and looking for them. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? You guys get it? You guys get it? Jafiel? You guys get it? And slowly over time, she just kind of like kept saying weird things. He's like, how do you know that about me? Like, are you going through my stuff? So he went into his room and he kind of made a mental note of everything in his bedroom. Now again, he was new to town. He didn't have a lot of belongings to really keep track of, which is something I can't relate to because if a cop came into my apartment, I would get arrested for the egregious amount of knickknacks and doodads in my apartment. But Victor was the exact opposite. He didn't really have that many things, and the things that he did have were in drawers or kind of like behind shelves, like not super visible. So he just kind of made a mental note of things. Sure enough, he comes back from his shift and he notices that some of his belongings have been moved, whether it's something on a shelf, whether it's the drawer was left open, or the shuffle of papers were now out of order. And he kind of realized Margaret is coming into my room and going through my stuff. Now, I may be new to adulthood, but I know that she's probably not supposed to be doing that. And so he confronted her about it at one of their dinners one night. And he was just like, hey, are you going into my room? She was like, no, not at all. And he's like, oh, that's crazy because some of my stuff has been moved and you know things about me that you probably shouldn't. So just wanted to get on the same page that I am not comfortable with that. And she would kind of, you know, whisk it away and be like, well, like I have to go in there for landlady things. I had to add batteries to your smoke detector and I thought I smelled gas and I wanted to go through your underwear drawer and see if you had any Polaroids of ex-lovers that maybe I could compare myself to. Like, no, but just normal landlady things. Okay, Victor, we're cool. And he didn't feel like she was being nefarious by any means, but he kind of started realizing, I'm feeling a little hamburger helpless in this situation. And so he promptly decided that because he was month to month and he had this side job, that he should start saving up money to look for a different place and get out of there. And so a couple more months pass, and again, nothing like crazy's happening. It's not like she is building a shrine of how much she loves him, but I think you guys can assume where this is going. Margaret had an eensy little crush on Victor and could feel him slowly starting to pull away from her in terms of being not only a tenant, but I don't know, probably just somebody that she fantasizes about before she falls asleep at night. And when it came to be Victor's birthday, she had a whole spread for a dinner. She cooked him a beautiful dinner, maybe lit some candles, and wrote him this really beautiful and romantically inclined message inside of his card. And it wasn't anything crazy. I wish I could report that she confessed her love for him or, you know, was like, live with me for forever and be my husband. Yeah, it wasn't anything of that sort. But Margaret was being very inappropriate in this card in terms of her tone. She was being a little bit more than a landlady and kind of insinuating that like, hey, it's been a pleasure living with you. Like, I can't wait to get to know you more, like yada, yada, yada. I don't know all of the details, but essentially it made Victor so uncomfortable that he let her know in that moment, thank you, Margaret. I really appreciate everything you've done for me in these few months, you know, kind of giving me a leeway on the rent and helping me out. But I think our relationship has become a little bit unprofessional. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable in my own living space, and for that reason, I'm out. I don't know why I did that like a Shark Tank thing, but he was like, I'm gonna be moving out soon. And she was very understanding. She was like, oh, I'm disappointed to hear that, but I completely understand your need to remove yourself from the living situation that is me. You bitch. And then Victor realizes, how did you know it was my birthday, Margaret? Like, we didn't have an official lease agreement. I didn't put any of my birthday information anywhere. Like, did you see it on Instagram the day of and go out and buy a card and make this dinner? And so he's kind of just had these weird feelings of like, how the frick frack did she know about this? But regardless, he immediately started searching for a new apartment, was able to find something pretty quickly, and wanted to proceed in the process of moving out. Now, at this new apartment, they did require an actual legitimate lease agreement. You know, they needed bank statements. They needed... What do you need when you get an apartment? Maybe like pay stubs? I guess that's bank statements. Oh, I know one thing, because this is really important to the story. The new place that he was applying for, the apartment needed an identification, you know, a passport, an ID card, a social security card. And Victor's like, sweet, I got all of that from my mom when I moved to Los Angeles. It should be right here in my drawer. Where's my passport? Where's my social security? Where's all my important paperwork? What the heck? Goes into his wallet and he goes, where the heck is my ID? Why are all of my official documents missing? And he goes, there's only one way Margaret probably would have figured out what my birthday is, and that's because she went through all my stuff and saw all my identifying personal information. So he goes and confronts Margaret and he's like, hey, do you have like my stuff? I can't really apply for other apartments if you have that. She's like, no, I don't have any of that. You sure you didn't misplace it, like in the move? Like, I don't know, you're kind of messy. I have been in your room and you're a disgusting pig, so you probably lost it. And Victor's like, oh my gosh, this bitch might be crazier than I thought in the first place. What he also needs for this apartment lease was a letter of recommendation from a landlord. And I remember when I was applying for apartments that some places had this, and I thought it was weird because it's like, yeah, Jacy didn't burn down her previous apartment and she paid her rent on time. Like, I don't know, I feel like as long as you don't have an eviction notice, like what landlord is gonna write you a letter of recommendation besides just like, yeah, she's good to go, you know, but some places require it. And sure enough, this place did require a letter of recommendation. So you guys guess how it went when he asked Margaret if she could write a letter of recommendation to this apartment. And she goes, yes, like, do I submit it directly? And he goes, yeah, like you can submit it directly or you can email it to me. Like, he's thinking that they're still good. Sure enough, that was the wrong decision because Margaret writes a scathing review, apparently, to this new apartment building that Victor was disgusting. He never paid their rent on time. He broke their dishwasher. He overused the air conditioning to the point of it breaking. She even claimed that he would leave the door open on purpose and let her cats out for very terrible reasons. And she even insinuated that he had an inappropriate infatuation with her and it made her uncomfortable. And that was the reason that he was leaving the apartment in the first place. You know, hell hath no fury like an old woman scorned by her 18-year-old tenant. And Victor didn't even learn about this until he got rejected, but he realized that, okay, I can't even be looking for apartments that need this kind of information because Margaret is going to foil any chance that I have. And of course, during this whole time, she is being sticky sweet to his face. She's saying like, oh, like I really don't want you to leave. Like, are you sure you have to leave? I'll make your rent even lower. You don't have to fix anything else around the house. Like, please, you're such a good tenant. I don't want you to leave. Meanwhile, she's trying to sabotage every ounce of chance he gets of moving elsewhere. So she was trying to keep him there. And finally, a couple weeks later, it kind of all comes to an end where Victor is able to find a new place. His mother was able to send him his birth certificate, which was, I guess, like the only missing piece he had, something along those lines. And he was able to apply for a new apartment that didn't require a letter of recommendation. And so he was finally moving out. And sure enough, when he was moving out, miraculously, he found all of his personal identifying information, but sure enough, it was in another drawer, and not the drawer that he knows he would have put it in. It was taken and then placed there by somebody else. Coincidence?
Coincidence? I think not!
And then Victor moved away from Margaret, never talked to her again. He lived happily ever after, and Victor is now Leonardo DiCaprio. No, I'm just kidding. Victor, if you're watching this, you know who you are. Thanks for letting me tell you your story. Keep pursuing what you're doing out here in Los Angeles. And I'm glad you survived the wrath of Margaret, because I watch a lot of true crime, and sometimes landladies that have unrequited love can get a little crazier than even she did. So insane story, but I had to tell you guys that secondhand Storytime snippet because you gotta be careful out there. You never know who you end up living with, what kind of monsters are on the other side of the wall. So just sign a lease agreement next time. The next Storytime snippets, I'm gonna kind of do rapid fire because they're just almost like little one-liners, but still to really emphasize the fact that there can be some insane landlords out there. And again, I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what encounters you guys have had with the person that you're renting from. Because some of these are not as insane as Victor and Margaret, but I still wanted to tell. But the next Storytime snippet is from a friend who was renting an apartment from her landlord. And it was towards the end of the year. And the landlord she had bumped into, and he was like, oh, hey, like, what are you doing for the holidays? And she told him like, oh, I'm going back home to Boston for a week. Like, I'm going to visit my family during Christmas and New Year's, and like, I'll be back in January, but like, here's my rent early because I won't be here for the first of the month kind of thing. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Like, have a great time in Boston. Like, enjoy the cold, but we'll see you in the new year. So this was the year of 2021. It was post-pandemic, but if you guys recall, during December of 2021, there was a huge spike in COVID cases and things started to get really scary again, especially in big metropolitan areas like Boston, where oh my God, what was that? You had to be careful. And sure enough, this friend of mine, she got a little spooked by the rising COVID cases. She did not want to go back home, get her parents sick. She just kind of wanted to avoid it all. And so she ended up staying inside her hometown. She ended up staying in her hometown instead of going to Boston for the holidays. And so on one of the days in there between Christmas and New Year's, she ended up going to a friend's house for a few days just to celebrate within her hometown, just to get like those little Christmassy holiday spirit vibes without actually going back home. And she came back after like a little 3-day staycation with a friend, goes into her own apartment. She finds him sitting on her couch watching TV. I beg your finest pardon, sir. What are you doing in my apartment? And he springs to action, was just like, oh my God, Christina, what are you, I'm so sorry, I thought you were gone for the holidays. I was just in here fixing your faucet. It was leaking into the apartment below and I was just here fixing it and I wanted some background noise, like, oh my goodness, like I should have called you to let you know, but it was an emergency, that's crazy. Meanwhile, she could see that there's soda cans on her table, there's fast food trash, and that he had been hanging out in her apartment for who knows how long. She deduces that it wasn't even that long because it's not like he had that much crap everywhere. But he promptly packed up all of his stuff. He messaged her, begging for forgiveness sort of thing. And I asked her, I was like, what did you do? And she was like, I don't know, I moved. And I was like, that's fair because there's like weird legalities in terms of like you trespassed onto your own property, landlord, when he could just easily dispute it. But very creepy, very scary. And I know I'm laughing about it, but that could be a terrifying situation. You gotta trust your landlord when they have the keys to your own apartment, that not only could they come and be a little frogger in your own home when they know you're gone, but they could come in at any time and, that one gave me some bone nausea, because I don't like hearing about that. But again, be careful and be mindful of who you're telling when you're going out of town. Another little mini storytime snippet from the internet, I actually saw this on Reddit, was they were saying that there was this couple that they lived in a building in New York City, and New York has notoriously high rent prices. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it's expensive. And I guess one of the apartments brought in a street couch and bada bing, bada boom, bed bugs. There was a bed bug infestation that affected the whole complex. So when there are bed bugs or any type of pest infestation, again, it is the responsibility of the landlord to fix it. I guess this couple said that the landlord went about it in the sketchiest way possible, and let me explain. So when there are bed bugs, you have to tent the whole building, fumigate the whole building, and rid the bed bugs all at once. But instead, what this building manager decided to do was kind of fumigate section by section. And so what inevitably happens with that is when you fumigate this area, all the bed bugs go, oh no, the smoke, it's gonna kill me, let's run over here. And now they're down on the ground floor up here. Okay, let's fumigate up here. Oh no, guys, we gotta go run again, let's go up here. And now they're up here. It's a weird way of saying that. Basically, they were almost like circulating the bed bugs instead of completely removing them. And so what this couple on Reddit said, again, it's Reddit, don't just take it for what it is. I thought it was kind of a funny story time, so let me include it here. But they were saying that they were doing this for very deliberate reasons, and that's because they were trying to essentially elongate the bed bug infestation without being legally responsible for anything. So because they were continuously getting bed bugs fumigated rather than doing it all at once, they were still trying to fix the problem. But by doing it bit by bit, the infestation lasted for over a year. This couple on Reddit was saying that they had bed bugs basically for forever. They never went away despite constant fumigations. And the reason for this, they say, is that the landlord was intentionally trying to drive out its tenants so that way it can release the apartments for a higher price. Isn't that so messed up that they're intentionally driving out the nice tenants of New York City just so they can get new bodies in there and raise rent prices and make more money? Capitalism? So if you find that happening to you, it is your tenant's right to I don't know, get the bed bugs removed. I actually don't know my tenants right, so don't listen to me. But if you have a sketchy landlord like that, it should not take a year to remove bed bugs. So be warned, there's something real suspicious going on there. And the last little story time that I saw on Reddit that just made me laugh, it was in like a thread of bad landlords. Somebody said that when they had moved out, like they had a great experience living in the apartment. They really liked their landlord. And so on the kitchen counter, they had left some chocolates and like a nice bag of coffee as like a little thank you. And then they got charged a $50 fee for removal of personal items. Maybe you should just write a card being like, thanks, this is for you. I didn't leave this here. But that's typical landlord behavior, to nickel and dime you for everything that they can. So stay safe out there. And the last Storytime snippet, I'll kind of go through quickly because the details in this aren't as important. I kind of really went hard into the details with the Victor and Margaret story because I like to be a little storyteller. This one I'll kind of go through quickly. But this couple had moved into this new apartment complex. It was very small, very mom and pop kind of feeling where there weren't too many apartments. But they really liked their new landlord. He was a cool, chill dude. So we will call him, hey Ziggy, give me a random boy's name.
A Turkish boy's name is Bayram, which means good day. By the way, you can shop with me to discover great deals while holiday shopping. Just ask.
No.
What are my deals?
No, I don't want to shop with you. That was not the name I was expecting. We'll call him Jason. So this couple moved into their apartment with their landlord being Jason. And Jason was a cool guy, but they learned pretty quickly that there may have been a screw or two loose upstairs, and that was based on this one email they received one day. Essentially, he had sent an email to all of the tenants saying that he would have to raise their rent by a couple $100s due to the soaring costs of electricity. Now, this isn't unheard of, especially if some of your utilities are included in your rent. But the way he described it made them realize, uh-oh, this guy might be a wacko. In this email, he is going off on a tangent, explaining that in California, there is a wildfire problem. And wildfires run rampant because of this supposed thing called climate change. And this isn't a thing in Idaho and Ohio, but in California, wildfires run rampant, and that's why we have fire insurance. It's something that you pay for. So I guess one year there was a big wildfire in California, like there always is every year. And PG&E, which is I guess like an electricity company out here, got taken to court and sued by fire insurance companies because they were the ones who caused the fires, because something in their buildings short-circuited and caused all of these wildfires. So now this electricity company has to pay settlements for starting this wildfire. So in order to recoup their losses, they now have to pass that cost on to all of the people that they give electricity to in order to recoup some of their losses. So me as the landlord, I'm Jason again, we now have to pay extra in electricity because the crooked companies over there are starting wildfires, even though climate change isn't real. But now you tenants have to help me pay for it because this world is out of control and the government is taking over because of all of its crooked misdoings. And the couple's looking at this going like, oh my gosh, this guy is insane. Essentially, they realize that, oh, our landlord, he might be one of those conspiracy theorists, or at least those like alt-leaning people who don't really believe in climate change, who are blaming capitalism or think the government is out to get you. And they're like, I don't know if your reasoning is all that allowed, but like it was a couple $100 a month in utilities, and that's what they probably would be paying for in electricity anyway, so they didn't really think much of it. And they realized this even further most recently during the month of October of this year, I think it was. So do you guys remember where that big emergency text got sent to all of us, like at the same time every day, and like all of our phones went off, just hee-haw, hee-haw. Great alarm, Jacy. So Jason, the landlord, emailed all of the tenants a couple of days before this emergency alert was gonna go off. And he explained to them, hi everyone, just want to let you know that I will be turning off the power to the entire building for an hour during this day because this emergency text is going out and I've heard that it will cause appliances to explode. Toasters, ovens, cell phones even. And so to prevent any damage to my building, I will be turning off the power. Now the tenants are reading this going like, is that allowed? Like, I mean, if it's a safety issue, sure, but like, what are you talking about? This mass text is gonna make appliances explode. What are you talking about? Turns out this was a very popular QAnon conspiracy theory when that emergency text went out. So I had to like research what the actual theory is about because I still don't understand what their mindset is, but it actually comes down, this is such a QAnon thing to say, it actually comes down to vaccinations and that the text was meant to start a zombie apocalypse. Let me explain. So QAnon people, and if you don't know what QAnon is, they're just like some alt-right conspiracy theory wackos. They're on another planet. I don't know what's going on there. But they are obviously anti-vax. They're the type of people to think that the government is microchipping you, that sort of thing. So they still believe that the COVID-19 vaccines contain sealed pathogens, including E. coli bacteria and Ebola, I don't know why I said it like that, all of which can be released by an 18 gigahertz 5G frequency. Uh-oh, that's suspicious, because if FEMA plans on doing a test of the emergency broadcast system, all of the 5G devices in the country will go off at the same time. Essentially, a test alert will activate deadly diseases within all people vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. And that in turn will start a zombie apocalypse, and all the people who are unvaccinated will have to defend themselves, but they're also the survivors because they weren't getting bad vaccines put into them. I don't know, you guys. This is one of those things that like I can't help but giggle at, but like really? You think that a phone is gonna go off and trigger a deadly apocalypse? I don't know what sci-fi movies you're watching, but that's not a thing. But then to have a landlord believe this so wholeheartedly that he will then turn off the power in his apartment complex so that no phones can go off and none of his tenants become zombies. Aw, actually, if you think about it, that's kind of sweet. He's like, I'm protecting you guys. No, but that wouldn't make sense because their phones would still probably be charged and go off. So I don't know what he was thinking. Long story short, this landlord was just a wacko, weird conspiracy theorist. And even though he kind of did it in the privacy of his own home, it bled into some of his tenants' lives, because that's when finally, the last part of this story, I'll wrap it up, is the couple noticed that shortly after moving in, they started receiving very weird emails, and those emails were QAnon related, conspiracy theory related, and they realized that when they had signed the lease for the apartment, given their contact information, that their landlord either had put their information on these sites or was the one curating an email list and re-forwarding some of these crazy theories, because they were now receiving all of the propaganda of QAnon. So pretty sure that's also illegal. You can't sell your tenants' information like that. And like, I don't care what your flavor of belief is, but don't be a dodo. And this guy was being a dodo. You don't pass along that stuff. It is crossing a line between the tenant and landlord relationship. And honestly, if you believe that stuff, I'll say it. You're stupid. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb like that. I actually had one more story to tell, but this video is taking too long, so maybe I'll save it for a part 2. Who knows? But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, let me know some of your crazy landlord story times. I want to hear the tame and mundane ones, or I want to hear the crazy ones where you may have had to call the cops. Because again, you never know whose roof you decide to live under. So you got to be careful out there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you want a part 2, or if you want to hear some other story times. I have more on my list, but I'm almost done going through my crisis, so we should be good to go now. If you guys want to hang out with me even more, check out my social channels. I am on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I also have a vlog channel that I'll be getting back into, again, once the brain demons go away. So getting back into that. But I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles! I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have a new camera angle here. Hang on, let me show you. I can't do my normal camera angle because I set it up. Hang on, let me show you. And, oh, come this way. Like I normally sit like this. My hair is the same color as my door. And I feel like I'm just a floating head now. So we're gonna work with the new angle until I decide to dye my hair back and get over all my problems.